Bow is my current favorite weapon in Monster Hunter Wilds, and as I now cycle into trying other weapons, I can understand how there can be some initial pushback to understanding the weapon at first. From charging your bow, to the coatings, to figuring out a workable combo that makes sense for your playstyle, each weapon is a puzzle that needs to be figured out. In this video today, I want to give you my guide to understanding and mastering the bow in Monster Hunter Wilds. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. Before we go into anything, let me tell you outright, this is not a video where I show you how to play exactly like I play. This is a video where I educate you on the individual aspects and parts of using bow so that you can learn to develop your own way of playing. I want to be transparent about that in case that was your expectation. Now, with the bow, you want to remember some key components. Try to either constantly maintain a coating or realize when it's best to have that coating off. For example, having the close range coating drastically reduces the range of your attacks, but sharply increases the damage. So popping this coating while the monster is knocked over or pinned helps with some great alpha striking. Conversely, when it's flying around or moving erratically, not having it active saves you a lot of frustration and helps mitigate losing some DPS. You can charge your bow without aiming it by just holding the button to charge or shoot. I know that sounds simple, but it took me forever to realize this, so it allows me to drop aiming, reposition, all while charging to then aim down sights and kill. Evade is key on the bow, so make sure you're choosing decorations and equipment skills that give you evade extender and stamina buffs so that you can maximize your evading since it's the real rhythm of the bow's rotation. Lastly, focus on elemental damage and affinity on your weapon selection to get the most out of your bow's flurry of shots, as well as capability to hit specific wound locations for big damage numbers. All of the status effects of bow come from their coatings. There's none that are innately on the bow themselves, stuff like paralysis and sleep. That's the too long didn't watch this entire video though, and we'll be going into way more detail across a lot of aspects of the bow, but I want to be respectful of your time and give you the most crucial points up front. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to hunting those monsters. You can navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And if you end up heading out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if the information in this video was helpful for you. Lastly, check me out on Twitch, linked below, where I stream Monster Hunter as well as plenty of other games. Well, let's get started on mastering the bow, my big tips for Monster Hunter Wilds. Before we do anything, let me give you a quick tip that's going to help you if you're just getting into the bow and using it and you're having the trouble of soloing monsters. Maybe you don't have any friends to play with, whatever the situation is. So we're going to go to Alma. We're going to go to the quest giver, Alma. We're going to open up post/join quest. At the very top, we see settings. Press that. And then from here, we have two important features. First one here is multiplayer settings. By default, it is set to players and support hunters. And you can keep it this way if you want, but the thing is, if you send out an SOS flare, it waits a long time before it brings support hunters in. Support hunters are NPC hunters. So what we want to do is select this and choose only support hunters. And then with automatic SOS flare, this is up to you. This at the very bottom, it says right there, select whether to automatically launch an SOS flare upon beginning a quest. So basically, do you want to always have NPCs with you the second you go to do a quest, or do you want to manually do it? And you just manually select that in the game if you want, but you would just simply set this to on or off. When you're first starting off using the bow and you're struggling, this gives you a lot of breathing room because it allows you to get shots on the monster without worrying about it constantly just slamming your face in. I will argue that the bow is an amazing weapon, but when you're first learning it, going solo is hard because you need to learn the pacing of how to do things and what have you. So I recommend turning all of these things on to start with until you can figure it all out. To start us off, let's go into some basic details about the bow. And if you're using mouse and keyboard, or if you're using a controller, I'll try to bounce back and forth between the buttons so that you have a good idea of what's going on. But for the most part, we're just going to be looking at left and right click or left and right trigger. That's the big thing we're going to take a look at here. Now in the lower right, you can see that I've got close range coating, and then above that is a bar. That is the trick shot gauge. You'll see then three little arrows with little blast markers around them. Those are your tracer rounds. If you've never played the bow, the tracer rounds basically create a lock-in for any and all things, and we'll go into that to its own section. But what's important to know is with that gauge, every time you hold down and switch over to a tracer round, you can see that it's going to drain the gauge. Same way, if I wanted to use coatings, it drains the gauge. So I can't use a tracer round right now because the gauge is not filled up to that point. Now I can, and there we go. So Filling that gauge back up is super easy. All you really need to do is just simply, you know, pull the trigger and it's good to go. So you'll be set, or just simply, you can just hold down charge and that will charge up that gauge. It's just important to talk about, and I figure for continuity, it's pretty straightforward and common sense, but I want to just outline it because someone might have missed it. Now, outside of that, a big key factor of the bow is that you have the ability to aim down your sight, quote unquote, bring up this little reticle and aim and shoot at this thing. And from here, you can do a lot of stuff. I'm in the training hall, in the training area, and there's a damn beetle around here, and that thing causes this annoying, like, droning sound, so I apologize if it's bothering you. You can download a mod to shut it off, and I haven't done it. But when you hold down left trigger or hold down right mouse button, you'll aim, right? And from here, you're probably going to do the majority of your stuff on your bow. You'll shoot your stuff. You can do everything you want can come all from this aiming down. But you don't need to hold down for everything, right? So I can drop it and I can still do my dragon piercer. I can still do just my standard shots, whatever I want to do from this angle if I so wish. But what you really need to know about this is when you're holding this down, you hold down right trigger, cool, you're charging your shot. Well, let's say the monster quickly went and did a big slam. Yeah, sure, you can just quickly evade, but you can also release left trigger. Your character will keep the arrow drawn and go back to left trigger. You'll see that both of those charges still retain. This is huge, and it took me a long time to actually realize that you could do this. So this allows you to get a lot of mobility in on your character without having to use any, well, you are using stamina because you're holding the charge there, right? But you're not doing a big one like an evade that has to reset the charges. So this allows you some good mobility. You can hold down, you can even swap over to a tracer round while you're doing it and moving and then releasing that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this basic section is about how your arrows will function when it comes to just pressing the trigger. So you have the charges, right? Those charges denote how many arrows will be shot from the bow when you use it. So if I'm just going to use the right trigger, just going to tap it once, one arrow comes out. If I tap it twice in rapid succession, it will treat as if we've done one charge, and I'll show you what that means in a sec. So in that instance, we shot one, then two arrows because we quickly got a charge. Now, if I press this 3 times in rapid succession, it's going to shoot 1, then 2, then 3 arrows for a total of 6. And you can, hopefully you saw that. That was 1, then 2, then 3. This gives you a way to quickly shoot arrows in rapid succession, as you saw, without having to fully charge the shot. The difference here is, again, if I just tap right trigger once, I'll shoot 1 arrow. If I hold it down and just get one little charge, which is those little blips on the left and right sides of this reticle, it will shoot 2 arrows, just like that. Now, if I hold it all the way down, it will shoot 3 arrows. This just gives you a frame of reference on how that works. So if maybe you shoot a tracer round and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta, every single shot on my tracer round has to be a full charge. No, it can just simply be this. You don't have to worry about it. It's gonna take care of itself. Because A, the tracer round will always shoot 3 arrows at once, and B, rapid succession will always put you through the charge combo of your arrow. And one last thing too on the tracer round, when you do, you can charge your tracer round, right? Charging it all the way to the max just means that the tracer round lasts for longer until you either manually detonate it or its time expires. So a tracer round at full charge lasts way longer, as you can see, than a just like generic one that I just kind of shoot out. It just is basically charging that tracer round will last for longer for your shot. So now we've talked about all that. Let's bring this together into some combos. I said let's bring it into some combos. I lied to you. What I want to show you very quickly, because we're going to talk about it for this section right now, are the coatings. But you can see at the top, we are at the little piece of paper with the question mark and the magnifying glass. At the bottom of that list is the play guide. We select that. Then we go to weapon controls. And at the very bottom, we have the bow. So we're going to take a look at this. But this is a handy, useful resource for any weapon you're trying to master. And this gives you a little bit more information on certain things. Like, for example, the Dragon Piercer. A powerful piercing shot can trigger fuse, arrow, and tracer detonations. Oh, well, this one's cool if you do it right after a combo, though. So, oh, I didn't know I could combo these two things together. This stuff gives you a lot of context on what you can take advantage of. But coding types is what I wanted to show off. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different coding types. Power coding increases our arrow damage, And remember, they last for up to 10 shots of any combinations. It's pretty much like you could do the 1,000 Dragon Piercer arrow. That's just going to count for 1 charge of the coating. Don't think of it as 10 arrows. Think of it as 10 attacks that you have the coating for. So a power coating increases the arrow damage. Close range coating reduces arrow range, but increases the damage further than power coating. So you will do a little bit more damage than you would with close range coating than you would with power coating. You just lose that range. So there has to be a caveat. Piercing coating basically makes it so that your shots will shoot not like dragon piercing arrows in the sense that they will shoot the entire length of the creature, but you will get a pierce out of them and they will hit multiple times as you shoot. My personal favorites, if I'm not trying to inflict any kind of status, are power or piercing coatings, depending on which one I'm using. Then you have poison, paralysis, sleep, blast, and exhaust coatings. I would recommend never to really use exhaust coatings. It does build stun, but exhausting things just slows them down. And it's like, I'd rather just take more damage or put an actual effect on the creature, like poison, paralysis, sleep, or blast. You can do a lot more things with any of those other status effects. The other ones, though, like I said, there are coatings. What's really fun to do with those coatings is, depending on which weapon you're using, this adds magnitude to that. So let's say you're using a poison weapon with a poison coating, it will add magnitude further than just simply the weapon's innate elemental properties. So again, if it has, let's just say 120 poison status effect. Remember, it doesn't do 120 poison damage. It will help build a threshold towards the meter, which will then poison the target. Well, using a poison coating and that elemental on the bow allows you to poison the creature faster. So that's just a quick once over on coatings. They're pretty upfront, but I wanted to go over it so you have a good understanding of how they work. So when it comes to the combos for this thing, everything depends upon your ability to sidestep and or quick evade, dodge, whatever it is, because that is the thing that dictates the speed of what you're doing and also the flow of what you're doing. So without really getting into the nitty gritty of actual combos, which we'll do in the next section, let's just show off something. So we're going to go ahead and press B again, and then I'm going to do this. My character kind of like hits this staggered moment, right? It slows me down. I'm just going to do, I think that this I can do kind of indefinitely. Still kind of slows me down at the end. Why you always want to take advantage of your evade is because it will change the pacing of all the combos you're going to do. Evade is the most important thing on this weapon. And let me go ahead and turn this on too, because it's going to be important for what we're going to talk about. But with the training manager, you can also have the monster over there, well, quote unquote monster. You can have it attack. So we're going to have it smash real quick. And evade is going to enable us to just have a solid flow to everything we're doing. Let me show you that same combo of the B, B, YB combo, right? So that's this one, and then this one. Are our characters kind of staggered? Well, we quickly press evade and we can go right into another thing. This allows us to keep the flow of what we're doing up so that we're not always just kind of staggered. This just keeps the character moving in a way that enables you to, it's going to drain your stamina, so you got to be mindful of that in the upper left, but it keeps us constantly moving, constantly doing damage, rather than just sitting there and waiting for ourselves to recover just like that. And in addition to that, our evade is crucial as a defensive mechanism. So when this thing's going to come down, oops, it juked me. Forgot it's got like a final little pump up. We do that and we do an automatic evade out of it, and it gives us a big window to get out of the situation, and it gives us a lot of iframes. We can really take advantage of it by getting hit in the head in the middle of my video, so I just sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but we can use it to take advantage with discerning dodge to give us a ton of mobility, and oftentimes you can follow it up with really cool techniques. You can it again. It's kind of hard to talk and also do those things at the same time to make it so that you look cool, but you know what, whatever. But you can see how evading really kind of gives you tons of flow. And when you're evading, watch my charges. See how I evade and then press right trigger? My charges immediately jumps to full. So this enables me to get a lot of damage on target, but at the same time, not really lose the momentum of my character. You just have to make sure you watch that stamina gauge, or at least have a good mind for it, because if you run out of stamina, you will lose all that momentum you just built. You just pretty much evade, and then hold right trigger as you're doing it, and your character is going to charge those up. You can see we're almost out of stamina. So kind of finish it with something like a big coup de grace. But this gives you a sense of using evade is really the pacemaker for everything you're going to do. If you run into a nice big combo of like, okay, B and then right trigger, right, the Y and B, then I just dodge again and I can keep my momentum going. I don't need to just simply sit on my ass as my character recovers from the recoil of doing the 1,000 dragons over here. So evading is crucial, and evading the big hits that monsters do is also crucial. Now, there is one other portion to evade, and I'll be honest, I don't really use it a whole ton. It is cool, and I think it's a bit of a flourish, and I'm really kind of terrible at using it too. So with your evade, you can, let's see if I can, well, yeah, mess it up. Hold left trigger, and you'll see that you can get hit in the head again while doing a video and further discrediting your stance. You see that it causes that discerning dodge, right? Now, if you're using the dual blades, you can just simply dodge. It's just like comical at this point. I either like go too fast or too early because I'm like all nervous. I'm making a video. Like I want to look so cool. But if you see right there, it doesn't do a discerning dodge. So you have to hold left click in order for that to, I'm sorry, you have to hold aim down sight or left trigger to get that action going. And holding down left trigger and pressing A causes that discerning dodge. And you can get a further combo out of this by getting hit again in the face when you're trying to make a fucking point, dude. And then pressing Y to get you to jump up in the air. Flying swallow shot is exactly what I was talking about. I just don't really use it. It's nice, but I think that like I've already done this. I don't really need that. Like it's cool, but I find that the nature of the bow doesn't really mean I need to jump back right into a certain position. You're usually pretty good to do anything from anywhere you want. It's just kind of a cool little flurry. So take advantage of it if you want. I just wanted to bring it up. I don't think it's too useful. I find so much more use out of just simply getting out of the way and then lining up my next set of shots. Part 2 of a big connector to your combos is your tracer round. Now we briefly went over this, but just to kind of go further into detail here, the tracer round is what allows you to keep that mobility and all of your hits on target. So if we aim down sight, put on our tracer round, we don't really need to aim at our target. Things will kind of shoot back at it, right? It also depends like how close you are, where that tracer round is, where you're aiming, right? Like it's not gonna shoot from behind me back at it. But tracer round again will enable me to just quickly just get a lot of movement in and always make sure my shots land on target quickly. And if you find yourself in a moment like I just did there a second ago, where I dodged and I was like, okay, I'm out this way, just dodge and then quickly press left trigger and you'll snap to the target. That's the nicest thing about this is you have a lot of really great capability to just choose a direction right before your attacks hit versus a lot of other things where you're like, hey, if you're not facing that way, you've already missed the hit. So again, tracer rounds like this, and we just go ahead and shoot. Now the tracer round, in addition to another set of rounds, has a way that it can be exploded to do more damage. So let that thing go ahead and do its thing. We'll launch a tracer round, and there's 2 methods to blowing up a tracer round. Any other attack will not blow it up. It'll blow up over time. But if I use 1,000 dagger or dragons, it will blow up that round and it eliminates a tracer round. So let me give you a further example here. If I go ahead and shoot this and then just press like B a bunch of times, I can shoot this thing for days, right? Like I can go crazy with it. And that's great. That's what you want out of the tracer round. You want to be able to target wounds with the tracer round because it will enable you to do more damage to those wounds because you're just going to be able to destroy it because of that tracer round. Now, the tracer round, if I go ahead again and use this, you'll see how long we were shooting at it. The other thing that detonates tracer round is the Dragon Piercer. So you see that tracer round's gone now. In detonating tracer rounds, it will do a large swath of damage, have a higher chance to critical hit, and it enables you to really kind of push a big combo home towards the end to hopefully blow a wound up. And that's really the big thing of it, right? Like you want to be able to, okay, tracer round, and we'll do this and this and this, and just try and pour as much into it as we can. And we ended up blowing up the wound. So it maximizes our damage because we're going to go a bunch of hit combos and a big like capital combo at the end to blow up that tracer round to do a ton of damage. As you see right there, it just did 631 damage after 19 hits. So this shows you that those tracer rounds allow you to keep a lot of things on target, especially a target that is moving a lot. It's really only valuable in like a 90-degree angle, right? Like we shoot that tracer round again. If I shoot over here, as long as I'm far enough back, it should be good. If I shoot over here, I'm just too far away, right? Even that is like too far away. You have to kind of just be that 90-degree angle of the left and right sides of your screen will be just fine to go. No tracer around there. Will be just fine to pull into it. Remember, charging that tracer round too will increase the duration of when it's up. I thought that it increased the damage of things, but it doesn't. I tested with a high and a low charge. It doesn't do any difference. So just know that when it comes to the tracer. Finally, we can talk more about those combos. And really the combos that this weapon has access to are pretty minimal. And I like that, but that doesn't mean that they're boring. The basic combo is just press right trigger a bunch of times. That's going to push you through all 3 of your charges. You can see it does 6 hits at 143, 136, give or take, right? Like it's going to be a variable. And the other big one is it shows you on the left over here, the Dragon Piercer or the 1,000 Dragons combo. If I press B and then B again and then B again, it will stop the combo. That's the combo. It's 3 hits right there. It does 215 damage. But when we add Y and B, we can spice that bad boy up. So we'll do this, then this, and then this. That did a whole extra 90 points of damage. So you can see how much more, or I'm sorry, 80 points of damage. So you can see how much more that did. And our other little basic one is YB and then this. Oops, whoops. I always mess that one up. So this and then that. I did it again. The 1,000 Dragons one I use probably the most. And it's the one that is, I think, definitely a combo that is like a come-all combo that you use for most monsters. This combo, which I'm going to actually do right now, is one that I like to save for monsters that are downed, monsters that are longer, stuff like that. Monsters that I know I'm going to be able to get more hits out of because the Dragon Piercer combo, the Dragon Piercer itself, goes through the target. And it will hit the whole length of the target. So you can see that when we put Dragon Piercer on its own by just pressing Y and B or R and F, it will shoot. It takes a long time and it shoots the whole length of things. Again, just to show you. But if we put Dragon Piercer at the end of a combo, it will work quote unquote instantly. So let's show you real quick. So we press B and then Dragon Piercer. It's faster than, see, it's like a whole like second or two quicker. Throwing Dragon Piercer at the end of a combo is highly beneficial because it gets you a big alpha strike. It just pins you down for the time to do it. So use it on longer monsters. Use it on a monster where you know you're like right up against a wound. It's knocked over. Those are the scenarios where Dragon Piercer really shines. Anytime you can really sit there and get that aim off properly, it's really going to give you a ton of damage out of it. Again, in this case, it's not because this thing's got a really small, it's a small thing. It's not going to travel a long distance because every time that thing travels through, it hits. So those are your basic combos that you're really going to be doing the majority of stuff with. This thing has on the lower left, it says Tracer combo. It's not really like a Tracer combo. You're just using Tracer at the beginning of all of your combos, which actually does increase their damage. But still, it's not like its own combo in and of itself. You just kind of preempt the combo with your Tracer and it will do a little bit more for you and you get that thing to explode. So you can see that did 456 for the 16 hits. So take advantage of throwing Tracer at the beginning of these if you have the gauge and also if you have a monster that you can stay in front of to do it. I think prioritizing Tracer combos is not the right way because of the fact your monsters are going to be moving around wildly, especially certain ones that are flying, certain ones that have a lot more mobility. Those ones, it's hard to say, okay, I got the Tracer round on. Let me get all my shots on the target. I'm already like kind of a little like Wonkapotamus here. And this thing's not even moving. So just consider using Tracer rounds as they fit your scenario, you oftentimes don't need to always get them active if the thing's moving a lot. Just try to get your hits on more than anything. Now, one of my favorite things to do here is this combination and Hailstorm. So what we're going to do is hold down left trigger, hold down right trigger, or left and right click, and then we're going to press B, which I think is R on the keyboard. And it brings up this little capability to do our arc shot. Now, arc shot is charged just like the bow is. So at the highest charge, it's more arrows and it's a larger circumference. If I just go ahead and do this quickly, you can see it just shot a smaller circumference with less arrows. Now, what falls with the arc shot are not tracer rounds. The game calls them something else because not all targets will go to where those tracer rounds hit. So you see they look just like tracer rounds. Now, if I hold down left trigger and then press RB to go into right bumper, to go into focus fire Hailstorm, you'll see we can now target those. And we want to get them all to 3 targets. Why this is crucial is it releases way more arrows and does a ton of damage. What we want from that, let me see if we have one on the creature right now. I don't think we do. What we want from that is the ability to break wounds. So while that will hit these arrows that are launched with arc shot, it will also target any tracer rounds. Let's actually just throw a tracer round on here. It'll target tracer rounds, as you can see. Well, if it didn't already target those, and it will target wounds. This is a great way for you to take advantage of any wounds you see on a target, any tracer rounds you can't get to, or any of those arrows that you shot. What this will do is, though, it will, if you have a wound on the target, perfect. Let's go ahead and drop one of these. If you have a wound on the target and you get full charges on this. Damn. Well, if you blow the wound up, it will follow up with a Dragon Piercer. That's the biggest benefit of this, is it basically combos you right into a Dragon Piercer after doing a ton of damage. Look at that, 962 at 64 hits. The pitfall is that this is a hard thing to do because if you're solo, you're really not going to be able to hold this thing down. You're really going to need to wait until the monster is knocked down, it's hit into a wall, you use traps, which is a big thing with the bow. Use traps to lock things down so you can do this. And then you can try to get this charge going as fast as possible to maximize damage. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, maybe I can't always aim or get in the right direction. That's fine. Those arrows pierce and will always hit their target. So don't worry about it. Just make sure you're in range. That's the biggest thing, because if you're out of range, you're going to lose that DPS. So if you're, let's go ahead and do this. You also can't just be like facing the complete opposite direction, right? But let's say, that thing kind of moves over to here. They'll trace towards it. Sometimes I'll shoot it up and have it arc down, but it won't matter. They will pierce towards it and hit any wounds, any tracer rounds, and any of those arrows. Just like I said, make sure you're doing it in a situation where you can take advantage of that arc shot, not when you're kind of trying to run and gun and dodge away. It'll just piss you off and you're like, I can never get this off. One quick tip too to know with arc shot: left trigger, right trigger, B, or hold that down. As soon as you release this, press right bumper. You can automatically start aiming and just start getting an initial beat on these arrows so you can get this release as fast as you can. It's my biggest tip with the arc shot because you don't want to just sit there and wait for those arrows and then do this. And also, you won't be able to target those arrows if this little circle or this big circle has not touched them. So you see how it touched that one? Now it's good. And there we go. See, we get all these guys charged up. And there we hit that wound. And boom, there we go. We got that wound destroyed with that Dragon Piercer. So that's crucial, is to try to get this thing to combo into Dragon Piercer for you for a ton of damage. It's one of the things that I use the most when I'm hunting with my friends with the bow and arrow to maximize my damage. Now, one of my last sections on before we put all this together is which bows to use. Now, like I've said before, this is not a video geared towards doing exactly these things to make you be the best bow player ever. It's helping you to develop your own style with the bow that makes you want to stick with it. If I just show you the way I play, then you might just bounce off that. Same thing here with the weapon selection. If I say, yeah, always choose this bow, maybe you don't like the look of this bow. Maybe you don't like doing that thunder damage, whatever it is. There's something to be said about this game and trying to shift your brain away from just simply a meta and more towards the weakness of the monster, which invariably causes the highest amount of DPS. So for example here, don't choose, you know, hey, everyone says maybe choose this bow or that bow. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you want to play poison. Maybe you want to play dragon. Then just fucking do it. It's your game, right? But try to focus on some of the things that really allow you to pull a lot of benefits from the bow. For example, here I'm using this one. It does thunder damage, which is typically pretty good. And on top of it, I can see that it has critical element, increases elemental damage when landing critical hits, which is pretty common with the bow because it also has 15% affinity, which is a 15% chance to crit hit. Other things can modify these things, of course, but that is a really nice benefit of this bow. That's why I'm using it. Conversely, though, you could be using a fire element, and I could use other things on like the tetrad shot down there or the poison duration up, whatever it is. So take a look at these equipment skills. Focus on stuff that is going to fit the playstyle you've got in mind. Like this one here, the Prominence Bow with Rathalos, increases the damage of critical hits, but its affinity is lower. So you either need to pull affinity in from decorations and other things, or just know that you're going to be a low crit chance, high crit damage build with it, whatever you're going to be doing with it. But just look at those things and have these individual choices for your bow match the target you're going after. If it's like, okay, you know, this thing has a strength to water, well, maybe you just don't want to do that, right? So you focus these on the things that make sense. A lot of people will tell you focus on elemental over status effect. What I mean by that is you'd focus on dragon or thunder here and ice rather than, I don't think there's actually any, there it is. I think there's a poison somewhere around here. Well, rather than like poison, like focus on actual elemental damage rather than the status effects, which actually is not on any of these bows. But regardless, my point remains here. Focus on the element, focus on affinity percent chance. That's a big one. Affinity percent chance is huge. And focus on, let's go ahead and look at this one. Where are you? There you go. Oops. Focus on stuff like this. Focus increases the fill rate for weapons with gauges and the charge rate for weapons with charge attacks. We are a weapon with a charge rate and charge attack. So focus is a really good one. Constitution is a really good one because that helps with stamina. Long evader or whatever it's called, evade extender, which is all going to be on our armor. Those are all real good ones. So take, for example, my Rathalos set. I've got all of these awesome skills on here. We've got Constitution, like I talked about. Reduces stamina depletion when evading, blocking, or doing certain other actions. And evade window extends the invulnerability period when evading. All those things are real great here. And we also get Adrenaline Rush, which is cool. Temporarily increases attack power after executing a perfectly timed evade just as a monster attacks. And we do that all the time. So Rathalos Alpha gives us level 5 of that and level 5 of evade window, right? So when we take a look at, perfect, this one's got both. When we take a look at that, level 5 Adrenaline Rush gives us attack plus 30 while active, and evade window massively increases invulnerability window. So this allows us for a lot larger margin for error. And then when we do get this off, we get a ton of damage poured in. So this just gives you an example of try to choose equipment skills that fit the right monster that you're attacking in the right situation you want to pull out of the bow. Just know in the lower right corner, remember your defense has 80 point breakpoints. Every 80 points, you're going to either have, you're going to have then 1/3, then 1/4, and then 1/5, and 1/6, every 80 points. So at 80 defense, it's half damage. At 160 defense, you will take 1/3 of the damage. So you want to just kind of scale it based off of every 80 breakpoint. And your resistance values over there, they're flat, either damage, not negators, but they will remove damage or add damage depending on whether it's positive or negative. So at fire resistance 10, I will have 10% of the remaining damage from fire after defense removed from the damage that hits me. Versus 9%, it will get a 9% buff to the damage against me. So just know those things. If you get 20 of any elemental resistance, it will allow you to be immune to that affinity. So that is the down and dirty for your equipment and everything. Let's put everything together and talk about some of my pitfalls, some of my successes with the bow. So let's put some of this together and talk about a lot of the things that maybe I do right or the things I just don't do right. I'm not the best archer or bow user in the world, and that's okay. I don't think you should expect yourself to be, and I think it's very easy to watch a lot of these videos on these subject matters and go, okay, cool, that guy made it look so easy, especially if you're watching something like Charge Blade and go, why the hell did I even pick this weapon up? But trust me, stick with it. Charge Blade's awesome. So either way, let's go ahead and press play here. And we're using a weapon that's got blast coating, and you can see that the thing gets knocked down into a trap, right? A vine trap. So we could take advantage of using Dragon Piercer. I'll say though that in this instance, I didn't really use Dragon Piercer to the best of its ability. You want to try to aim Dragon Piercer down the length of a monster, and I'll show you a clip right there, or in a little bit. But what you can see is though that this monster, the Odogaron, and I'm not sure if I pronounced that properly, is super mobile. It bounces around all the time. So I don't worry too much about constantly trying to get really strong combos in. I try to just get tracer arrows on. I try to get the arc shots off as best as I can. So right there, we got an arc shot off. And let me actually rewind that. I think that's actually a tracer round. And we were able to get the Hailstorm. So it followed up here with a wound to hit and destroy for 262. But what I want you to see is, one thing to know with the bow is it's got very tricky geometry you've got to deal with. If something is in the way, it will stop the shots, depending on what you've done. The instant combo Dragon Piercer, for some reason, seems to like pierce infinitely, and we'll see at the end of this little clip here what I mean by that. But this should block the shot. It should not allow the shot to go through. In fact, it doesn't. It just kind of shoots randomly into the wall, right? But then we wait a little second longer, flip, it hits and destroys that wound. So try to realize your surrounding before you release a bunch of arrows. And when it comes to the arc shot, yeah, you're going to be out of range for a lot of times, because when you take a look at what this how this works is, let's go ahead and shoot this. Again, we're going to just jump back before until we break this wound. You see how much room we just took up by moving around? So you have to consider these things. Choke up on the plate, or on the bat is what I'm trying to say. Go further into where you want to be with the monster to position yourself for these bigger hits, because you're going to move back a ton. If you don't, your character will move out of range. And I think, yeah, I had to choke back up, and you'll see what I mean in a second here. So we shoot an arc shot, and as soon as we let that arc shot go, we go to position ourselves into the Hailstorm. It puts us pretty far away from all these arrows. And Odogaron goes to move away, goes to move to the next area. And in doing so, just watch. We're going to light all these up. It's going to flash out of range, and these are going to follow into him. It's not going to do as much damage because it's out of range, so always try to stay in range as much as you can. Even if you get out of range, don't beat yourself up. It happens to me all the time, and it's not too big of a deal because this is still going to do range, but also watch what happens. Does plenty of damage. Then we follow it up with that instant Dragon Piercer. That should not do that. I should not be able to shoot through the ground. That thing's 42 meters away if I look in the lower left, or whatever 42 is, meters, kilometers, whatever is in this game. I shouldn't be able to do that. So know when sometimes your bow is going to break the laws of the game and try to take advantage of it, but also don't try to force yourself in situations where your character is also going to get punished. So catching up with Odie over here, we can see that we're going to do some tracer shot action because, again, this is a very mobile monster. And, you know, aiming with a controller is a little tricky, right? Mouse and keyboard, is a little bit easier. But I knew that the thing's going to jump around. So we switch to a tracer shot. We just get a lot of good shots on target, and it allows us to stay mobile and still get a lot of hits on. And we can just kind of jump around as we need to. Use this to the best of your advantage. You don't need to sit there and be a turret and just shoot the thing. You can just simply pop shots off when you can, do whatever's necessary, especially if you're playing solo. This is not a static game where you're going to hang out, right? And like that was bold. Like that was a really cool situation, but that was completely unintended to basically use the animation of Dragon Piercer as a dodge. Yeah, I can tell you I'm not that good. That was totally unintentional. It looked really cool though, right? I wanted to actually do that one, but just know how much I'm choking back up every time I get a combo out. We're not just hanging back and letting ourselves carry out of distance, out of range. We don't see out of range flashing so much because I'm trying to really keep that range close in. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to push yourself away from the target and not be able to do fuck all, or just get swiped just like that. Make sure you're using your evade. That's another example of, you can kind of get blinders on and you can really get lost in the sauce of getting good combos on target, just try to be measured with your approach. If you think the monster is just immediately to your left or right or behind you, just simply evade away from it. It's not going to hurt you, because we've seen how evading actually can speed up your combos. So take advantage of it. Don't simply just sit there and get hit in the face like I did. Also, too, see how too we got pretty, we redlined, right? We got really low on that. And my response was not to run away in fear, was to get my sacred and then use my potion. Feel free to jump on your sacred throughout the entire fight. That's not just a bow thing. That's an any weapon thing. Use it for the mobility that it affords you. Try to get a mount attack on it at the same time, and do what you can. So here's an example of some terrible bow play. And I think it's important to see this. I think a lot of people don't like to show they all just like to show like the really cool moves, right? But here, this is terrible. Like, I have a tracer around on that. Cool, I hit that thing. I popped a close range coating for something that I'm having to stay way more mobile for. It's forcing me to stay really close. I'm getting hit left and right. I'm wasting time. I'm wasting DPS. I'm not doing anything really sufficient. I'm spending so much time in this fight in specific. I've spent so much time quaffing potions than I have actually doing damage to the target. And it's because I was using close range coating. To be fair, this is like my first fight using this close range coating, where like my muscle memory was like, cool, blast coating, I'll be good. But in this fight, you know, I waste so much time being out of range. And in doing so, there we go. In doing so, I'm not helping the team. I didn't put a tracer around on that wound. I'm out of range. I'm not doing anything. I'm wasting steps and stamina. I'm barely even shooting right now. Like, look at this. Okay, cool. That did a cool chunk of damage, but I didn't dodge out of that. I didn't keep the momentum of the bow, which is the biggest advantage to using it, right? Yeah, sure, we recovered a little bit there, but in doing so, like, I'm not really taking advantage of what this bow can really do. I can use tracer rounds. I can use my dodging to keep my combos up. I don't need to be using close range coating unless I really am in a position to take advantage of it. You see how often in this clip we've seen out of range flash up on the screen. Right now, we just got a really good little set of volleys, right? But close range coating is really a double-edged sword, and you have to be careful about it. So you have to have a lot of presence on the monster as well as yourself. Because look, I mean, in this clip, I think we've drank like 3 potions. I've spent so much time doing that, and we ended up losing this fight. And maybe it's because my DPS wasn't on point. It's also because of the big ice shatter thing that he's got, right? But try to not quaff those potions so much, because you're putting yourself in danger, because you're not using things properly. Look at this, out of range, and that's okay. You can definitely hit those panic button moments where you're like, I don't care if it says out of range, I'm just going to keep shooting. It happens. It's okay. You can have those moments, and you just correct them, and you learn to do it better the next time. So arc shot, we've talked about how it's one of my favorite abilities, and you can really see that we can pull a lot of damage off here, right? Like, okay, boom, big. Then we do it with an immediate Dragon Piercer combo, and look at that, 2 wounds destroyed, which is really sick. But then we knock the thing over, and we can really take advantage of Dragon Piercer to the best of its ability. Now, what I want you to see right there in that moment is we used Dragon Piercer, and we shot down the entire length of the Jin Hadad, which is sick. And that's the biggest benefit. Like, in those moments, you can just simply sit there and really try to get as much value as you can. We're out of range, right? So we're definitely neutering the amount of damage we can do. But when you position yourself down the length of a monster, wait till I do it. Notice that I'm not directly behind the monster aiming down it, because I have to assume this monster is going to stand back up. And in these moments, I can actually change that direction, right, by moving the crosshair left or right. But in this too, I know I've fought this fight quite a few times. I know roughly where this character is going to, or where the monster is going to stand back up. So it stands up directly lined up with where proctology exam. It's ready for it, right? So that's my point. You don't always want to actually aim right down the center. You want to aim slightly askew, or learn where you need to position yourself to try to get the most out of a Dragon Piercer. Those are little things. And this is such a long dragon that, you know, you're still going to be out of range eventually for the end of the shot. So don't really worry too much about that range. I'm still just kind of plucking away at the thing. But Dragon Piercer is a lot of fun to do a ton of damage in a really cool way. So in this last segment, or one of these last segments, I want to show just quickly some mistakes, but also the importance of dodging and how that can actually kind of mask some of your mistakes. Big issue here, again, close range coding. This is the same engagement where I was messing up a lot with close range coding. You treat that like a shotgun, getting up close and personal and trying to do as much damage as you can. But dodge and, I'm sorry, evade and that distinguished dodge, the discerning dodge, is really what keeps you alive a lot. And it really helps you enable more of those combos, which we've talked about this whole video. But we get a good one here that we can try to take it. That's like the only time I've ever done that jump attack like naturally. And I missed the shot follow up with it, right? But my friend just gets pulverized right there. I jump away. I do more fun things. I miss everything because I'm out of range because of the stupid close range coding that I kept messing up. And we just keep getting more dodges out of it. So you can see, hold down that left trigger and you know a big attack's coming. Get yourself ready to dodge more so than do the damage. Because if you're dead, you cannot do damage, right? We've gotten a lot of really amazing dodges out of this situation. And it's important because that is what enables you to open the door. Now, I couldn't capitalize on them because I messed up so much with my coatings, didn't set any tracer rounds. I really wasn't doing anything to maximize on all of these really great dodges I was doing. So I would tell you that when it comes to trying to get better at dodging, trying to get better at tracer rounds, trying to get better at any one thing, choose one of those things for that play session and focus on it. Today, I just want to get better at the dodge. I won't care about everything else. We'll pick the slack up on that as we move through it. Okay, I've gotten a really good session in. I did a lot of really fun dodges. It created a lot of fun excitement in myself. Let me go and do now a better, let me go be better at using the Dragon Piercer. Let me, speaking of, bam, look at that cranial ice plate broke. But use that as a kind of a bit to yourself to know, pace yourself in learning these weapons. You don't need to simply jump into them and go, I'm the best at this immediately, or I'm frustrated because I'm not the best at it immediately. This game is not going to be like that. You're just going to suck a little bit and you'll gradually get better. And the more reps you put in, the more time that you fight these monsters, the more that you fight the monsters you struggle with, the better you are going to become. So at that, it brings our video here to a close. And hopefully this gives you a better idea on how to approach the bow. Like I said, nothing in this video is like, hey, you have to play it like this. It's, I hope you now understand the constituent parts of this bow so you can put them all together in a way that makes sense for your play style. Do you want to be a close range coding archer? I don't, but maybe you do. So you will take advantage of that better than I ever would. But now maybe you understand how you can use your tracer rounds or how you can use Thousand Dragons attack to maximize your damage with your close range coding. Maybe you want to do more of the blast effects or paralysis effects, the poison effects, because I forgot those don't actually, not on the bow, they're on the actual coding. Maybe you want to capitalize on those. Well, now you know really how you can do that by maximizing the amount of arrows that are coming out by simply just pulling that trigger a bunch of times. That's 6 shots every 3, right? That's a pretty good amount. So there are a lot of things with the bow, but the bow is actually a lot more accessible than a lot of the other higher damage weapons. Charge Blade is a beast, but it's not so easy to learn. Switch Axe is awesome, not so easy to learn. Lance is amazing. That is the end of that sentence right there. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if there's any things that you know about the bow that you wanted to share that I didn't cover. Maybe I missed something, or maybe I didn't go into something as much detail. Let it be known below. As much information out to the people is what helps people learn games better and faster. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.